Today, we're continuing our journey on the 1001 Movies You Must Watch Before You Die 2020 edition. And today's movie is the 2001 fantasy adventure movie, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings, which is the first in the trilogy, directed by Peter Jackson. So, finally got my wife to watch this. She was fighting it off forever. When I found it was on the list, I was like, guess what you get to watch? Because she was adamant about never seeing this movie just because. For no real reason.
Because it's too long. That was my reason. It's too long.
We've watched longer movies before,
Reluctantly.
but we've watched them.
I have to be forced to watch any long movie.
Anyway, obviously you had heard of this movie before we watched it.
Yep.
I saw it in theaters when it came out. It was my introduction, really. Actually, it was. I read The Hobbit, not knowing that it had any relation to this. And I read The Hobbit just on a whim. Like, I needed some type of like credit, and it was based on how many pages. And so I just found like a big book and wound up reading The Hobbit.
Terrible.
So when I went to see Lord of the Rings, I just like saw the trailer and was like, that seems cool. And I watched it, found out, through watching, I was like, oh, this is related to The Hobbit. Anyway, have that history with Lord of the Rings. As we said, this is the first in the trilogy. Lucky for you, only the first one is on the list.
Lucky for him.
Even though this is the first time I've seen it in some years, we watched it on DVD because I own it, the whole trilogy. Me and my roommate, shout out Big Eric, used to watch this quite a bit. Not even a full movie. We would go to sleep to this. Like the score of it is so peaceful. We would just turn on the movie and have the
listening to bedtime stories. And
man, we'd be up to like 2-3 in the morning, just being college students or whatever, and we knew we had to wake up for like 8 a.m. classes, so we need to get to sleep quick. So we throw on the movie, have the menu just playing the score with the violins out like a light every time, until it stopped working and we got immune to it. So then Eric would just watch it until he fell asleep. Anywho, this movie is set in this world created by J.R.R. Tolkien,
the author of Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Dealing with hobbits, which you may know them as halflings, which is basically just really short humans with humongous hairy feet. That's all they are. Not to be confused with dwarves, which are like short, stumpy humans with beards and live underground mostly and are like natural blacksmiths, yada yada yada.
In the fantasy world.
Yeah. Elves, orcs, dragons, all that good stuff. He basically laid the blueprint for that type of storytelling. Anywho, this movie is about a hobbit named Frodo, who's tasked with taking this ring called the One Ring and destroying it. He's got to take it to a specific place to get it destroyed because it's evil. And the Fellowship of the Ring is the name of the group that he's with, of humans, elves, and dwarves.
I want to call them ne'er-do-wells and vagabonds, but they're not. So I can't.
What did you know about the movie before watching?
I knew Elijah Wood was in it, and that he was Frodo. I knew there was a ring. I knew my precious and Gollum from saying my precious. I know you turn invisible when you put the ring on. I knew that already. And
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time, Carl.
So you knew quite a bit.
I was fighting myself to not say it. And that's all.
She knew quite a bit. I mean, the movie been out for 20 years.
I knew that just from the preview. Like, not even from spoilers or anything.
That's true. So yeah, 2001. It's 2025. It's been a minute. I think it's been since college that I've watched. So 2008. Yeah, I'm old. Fast forward to us getting together and you being like, no.
Thanks, Tom Hanks.
So ain't watched it. Just been sitting on the shelf. But yeah, so getting into spoiler territory. It starts off with this narration of where we're at in the world. You find out later it's an elf played by Cate Blanchett that is narrating. Because you just hear her voice. You don't.
I found that out.
You didn't know that was Cate Blanchett?
I didn't know who was narrating it. I honestly don't remember it being narrated.
So you remember the big fight in the beginning, the big war?
Yeah.
That was being narrated. It was saying what the war was, who was fighting in it.
Now that you say it, I remember, but I didn't remember.
It's been a busy week since we watched the movie, so.
Word up.
Anywho, basically the big bad guy's named Sauron, and he's fighting the elves and the humans that have banded together to fight back against him. He gets his finger chopped off carrying this ring. So basically he makes this ring in secret after making these other rings. So because I'm not deep into the lore, he makes a certain amount for the humans. I think it's 9. He makes like 7 for the dwarves and like 3 for the elves. Don't come for me if I got those numbers wrong. But basically he makes rings for the leaders of the humans, the elves, and the dwarves, right? And it's supposed to be this like, hey guys, we're a big happy fun family. I'm gonna make these rings, and they're each gonna do like different things. For the humans they do this, for the dwarves they do this, for the elves they do this. Actually the elves made the rings for everybody, but Sauron was the one who like put the thing together. Well, anyway, he makes this one ring in secret that's supposed to control all the other rings.
You know, true evil.
Yeah, true evil
fashion.
Stuff. Tidbit: my wedding ring is the one ring. So you probably can't see. I can take it, but you probably can't see that. But anyway, it doesn't say the same thing that it says in the movie, but it's written in Elvish. And it's the same, Elvish font, which is a real font, a real alphabet that Tolkien came up with. But it says, one ring to show our love, one ring to bind us, one ring to seal our love and forever intertwine us. This lady.
I love him, I guess.
She loves me. Not enough to watch the movie, but enough to make that my ring. It's silver instead of gold. Sorry, tungsten. Well, I meant silver in color. But
tungsten in color.
Whatever.
Indestructible metal. Just like our love.
Unlike the one ring that shows the Elvish writing when it gets hot, like extreme heat, basically in fire, this you can see it all the time, but when it gets wet, it's like when I'm in the shower, all the letters are more prominent. I don't know if that was on purpose or just natural how that goes. Anyway, his finger gets cut off mid-battle and he loses it. He winds up getting destroyed, and the human who cut off his finger, by complete accident by the way, just flailing about, picks up the ring and is like immediately tainted by the ring, and he's supposed to destroy it here and there, but right then and there, but he winds up keeping it because he's affected by the evil in the ring. He winds up losing the ring, traveling from point A to point B, and this creature named Gollum picks it up, and Gollum does the "my precious," like she said. In pop culture, Gollum, even if you don't know his name. He had it for a number of years until the ring, which has a mind of its own, left Gollum and got picked up by this Hobbit named Bilbo. So that's the beginning of the Hobbit book, which came out before the Lord of the Rings. But for whatever reason, they made the Lord of the Rings movies before they made the Hobbit movies. They didn't make the Hobbit movies till like 2013, something like that.
I have seen those.
Yeah, she has seen those because a friend of ours worked on them, and so we were watching it for support. So Bilbo getting the ring is kind of the crux of the story, because he's had the ring, but he just has it. Like, he hasn't been really tainted by it for real, surprisingly, because he hasn't worn it or anything. He just kind of has it in his pocket. So he's one of the weird hobbits that doesn't really like living the secluded life of a hobbit. Like, he wants to be an adventurer. Again, going back to the Hobbit, no other hobbit really wants to leave their house. Like, they're hermits, basically. They're skittish. They don't like unknowns. But he went off with Gandalf, played by Ian McClellan. Sir Ian, by the way.
Put some respect on his name.
Put some respect on his name. And he winds up bouncing. He leaves the ring to Frodo after Gandalf finds out he has the ring. Gandalf doesn't know he has the ring. When he does find out, he's like, yo, what you doing with that ring? You need to get rid of that joint. And Bilbo's like, whatever. I'm going to leave it with you. I'm bouncing. And so he leaves it to Frodo. And Gandalf's like, hey, Frodo, I know you don't got nothing to do with this, but you do got something to do with it now. Your uncle done messed up. He left you this ring. You got to get rid of this ring. And so they travel. Well, he travels by himself to go get the ring. Oh, tidbit. So in the book, apparently, the time line is different. So in the movie, he's just like, yo, I'm going to go find out some information about the ring. Meet me at this pub. Or whatever. I forget the name of the pub. It's irrelevant. But go to this town. Meet me in this pub, and I'll have information. Mm-hmm. It's 17 years in the book. Mm-hmm. It's a 17-year gap of him like traveling, finding information out about this ring.
They say we ain't got that kind of time. It's not really a 5-hour long movie.
It's not a 5-hour long movie. But yeah, it's more like a couple days for them to travel from their home to the pub. But he's supposed to go by himself. Another Hobbit played by Sean Astin, aka Rudy from the movie Rudy.
Right. AKA whatchamacallit from Stranger Things.
He's Frodo's gardener / friend, and he's Bilbo's gardener and Frodo's friend, and he's doing some landscaping, and he overhears the conversation. So because he in on a secret, he gotta go. Right? He's not qualified to go, but he gotta go.
He's definitely loyal enough to go.
He's loyal enough to go. And then before they even get out of town, they run into these two troublemakers of the Hobbit like family, Pippin and Merry. And so they wound up getting tangled in. So now instead of one Hobbit going, on this adventure, now it's 4 Hobbits. And the other 3 are completely incompetent. The worst travel companions ever. They made this way harder than it needed to be. Yeah, everything that possibly could go wrong went wrong because of them. So anyway, they get to the pub. Gandalf ain't there. Reason why? He went to his old master named Saruman, not to be confused with Sauron, the big bad guy. Saruman is the head of the wizard order that Gandalf is a part of. And Saruman is like, look, this dude Sauron is back, and I'm going to go ahead and get with the villainy side so I don't get clapped with the rest of y'all. So I got to lock you up so you can't help your boy Frodo. So Gandalf's being detained. He done got beat up by Saruman, played by Christopher Lee, R.I.P., who was the only person in the cast to have read The Lord of the Rings. And apparently he read it every year for his birthday. Like since he found the book, I don't know how long that streak was, but that was his tradition. He read it every year. He would even go into like the makeup department and the creature department. He would give them pointers on what stuff should look like and if they was doing stuff right. He's also the only person to have met Tolkien. So everybody else, you know, they may or may not have read the book. Most hadn't read the book.
He was actually about that life.
Yeah, he was about that life. He was like a super fan.
I'm glad he got to be in it then.
Right. So when they get to the pub, Gandalf ain't there. They wind up meeting this human ranger called Stryker. Well, that's the name he goes by. Later on, you find out that's not his name. But they get with him. He helps them out. They're being pursued by these ring wraiths. Basically, these like goons for Sauron that hunt for the ring.
Real tough. Strong.
Yeah. So Stryker gets him out of there. And not before Frodo gets stabbed for the first time.
His first stabbing.
He gets stabbed with this like super deadly sword that the ring wraiths carry, and he's like, only elves can fix this. So they go to the elven country, which is like out of the way of where they're supposed to be going,
over the mountains and through the woods.
And luckily he runs into what turns out to be like his somewhat girlfriend. Like they have this will they won't they, but he's a human, she's an elf. It's forbidden love.
It wasn't even a will they won't they. It's they would.
Right.
If they could.
So she gets them back to her people. By this time, Gandalf has escaped on the biggest plot hole ever, which is still debated to this day. So again, we're in the spoiler territory, so it doesn't matter. He gets away from Saruman, who's got him up on the top of this tower, or whatever, like a skyscraper.
Top of the tower.
He's on top of the skyscraper. Can't get down. You know, he can't fly or nothing. He's not that type of wizard or whatever. He throws some lightning, some fire, some sparks here and there, but he ain't flying. But he finds a moth that finds its way up there for whatever reason, and he tells his moth, "Hey, yo, go get help." And the moth come back with this giant eagle. Take the eagle, pick up Frodo, drop the ring in the volcano.
That's what he should have.
That's what he should have did. Done. We up here walking miles. Right.
So it should have ended.
We walking miles, days, if not, months to get to Mount Doom, which is this volcano that's in the middle of Sauron's like domain. So it's super dangerous to get there. It's super far. Just ride on this giant eagle, drop that joint at the top of the volcano, let it fall in the lava, call it a day. We done. Right? But nah, that ain't the plan. So he let the eagle drop him off at the elf village or whatever. We meet Hugo Weaving's character, who's like the king of that group of elves. Hugo Weaving, you know him as Mr. Smith from The Matrix.
Also, the should have been girlfriend is played by Liv Tyler.
Yes, forgot to mention that. So this is where you meet the rest of the gang, because the dwarves and the elves were meeting for an unrelated issue, and Hugo Weaving's character, I can't think of his name, was like, look, we got to get this ring destroyed, so who's gonna take it? And everybody was arguing or whatever, a la Avengers arguing over the Tesseract kind of scene. And Frodo's like, look, forget all of that, I'll take the ring. Since y'all want to argue, let's bounce. Day. And so the hobbits was like, if my boy going, we going. And then the dwarf is like, well, I ain't about to let no hobbit outdo me, so I'm going. His name is Gimli. And then Orlando Bloom's character, Legolas, he's an elf. He's like, well, I got to represent the elves. The elves got to have some type of representation. So I'm going. Stryker, who now is known as Aragon, that's his real name. He's an exiled prince. He's like, I've been with him since the pub, so I'm gonna go. I ain't got nothing else going on. And then this guy named Boromir, who's played by Sean Bean, who a lot of y'all may know from memes and Game of Thrones. And he's just like,
insert here. Winter is coming.
he's just like, I gotta represent the humans because I'm important or whatever. Like, Stryker ain't there. Oh, by the way, Stryker is Viggo Mortensen. That's who plays him. Tidbit about Viggo. So Stryker he speaks Elvish in the movie. Like there's different points where he just like randomly, not randomly, but he's speaking their language instead of speaking English. Again, Tolkien made a legit language. Like that's you can speak Elvish.
Like Klingon.
Yeah, like Klingon. And Viggo Mortensen is...
I just failed you all because my fingers wouldn't separate. I was like, come on, Brie. Send the message down to my
Viggo Mortensen is trilingual. He speaks English, Spanish, and Danish.
Just like my girlfriend.
So he had Peter Jackson get the script rewritten for his character to speak Elvish because he was like, I just learn languages easily. Mm-hmm. So in addition to learning my lines, I'll learn lines in Elvish, and I want to say them in Elvish. So he's like, all right, bet, yeah, do whatever. So he's the only person to speak Elvish that's not an elf in this movie, but they speak English 99% of the time for everybody. So now they're dubbed the Fellowship of the Ring. Let's go. And on the journey, Frodo gets stabbed 2 more times. This is the same movie. Basically, he gets stabbed every hour.
And they are in vital organ areas of his body.
Right. He ain't getting stabbed like in the shin and the like. My man getting stabbed all torso action.
Kidney.
Every time.
Lower intestine.
Right next to the heart. Right, like, they got me here. My man is going through it. But it's his own fault every time. Like, it's not like, oh no, they got him. It's just like, come on, Frodo. What? My man is not, he don't got no fight or flight. It's just like,
he's I don't get it, Big Dan.
Right.
Come on, Big Dan.
It's all about the money, boys. That's it. No. Right.
I don't get it, Big Dan.
That's what he is.
But he is a hobbit, and they're not known for their like fighting abilities, so they pretty much just turtle up.
He could have even done that. He didn't do that.
Yeah, he didn't even do that. But yeah, so this is part 1 of 3. They don't get to Mount Doom.
Sure don't.
They fight a bunch of. She was like, "Wait a minute, they not going." She was like, "I'm about to be mad. They not going to destroy this ring."
I was like, it gotta be close to this movie ending by now. Every time I did think it was close to the movie ending, they would go to another act, though. I will say. So I was like, well, either it's about to be over for real at midnight, or another act is about to happen. But it was over for real that time at midnight.
But yeah, it basically ends right after Gandalf dies. By the
spoiler alert, Gandalf died.
Right. By the Balrog, which tidbit, that was the first day of him shooting. So them doing all that crying, like they were like, we've just met this dude like today, but that was their first day of shooting. He had just got there. That was their first day of shooting with him, but it was like they had to do this emotional scene of losing this dear friend that they've been with for X amount of time, and they just met that dude.
I don't know this fool.
Orlando Bloom thought about, I think it says like his dad, somebody personal to him, and that made him cry. Also, this was like his launching pad. Like he got this role before he even graduated from drama school. So like before he graduated, he got this joint.
Imagine.
Right. But yeah, that's the movie, is finding out what the ring is and knowing that we got to go destroy the ring, and now we starting this journey. So the first movie is just basically the beginning of the journey.
The origin story.
Yeah, origin story.
Of this part.
Obviously they get it done by the third movie.
Spoiler alert.
So there's...
Maybe I decided to watch Lord of the Rings now.
Well, I mean, you know they gotta finish up.
I know. I haven't heard. I literally don't know anything about the other movies. I know Gollum in it again because I've seen him do more. Like, just from other stuff. But I might also be wrong about that. I don't even know. I just feel like Gollum is more because he didn't do nothing for real in this. And he's a big person, but he could be like whatchamacallit from Star Wars that everybody loves, and he ain't even have a role or a line.
Right.
Anyway, blame him for everything I just said. I ain't know none of this stuff. But yeah, I don't know nothing about the other movie, so
yeah,
they could have failed the mission for all I knew.
That's true. But yeah, that's the movie. So in terms of what you thought about the movie, what did you think about the movie?
I would like to actually add something before I say what I thought. Bilbo, they did show that he did get a little obsessed with the ring at one point when he got back with Frodo. And he's like, oh, the ring. And he was like, you think I can just maybe hold it for a second? I could just look at it for a minute. And Frodo's like, no, I think I'll just keep it. And he's like, like, turn into the boogeyman all of a sudden out of nowhere. And Frodo's like, oh my god.
He clutched his pearls.
Leave, you crazy.
He tucked his chain in like red.
Come Debo. Who? Debo.
I just tuck mine in.
Like, he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Just so close to it, it got a hold of me again. So it got stronger, I feel like, too, because
it did.
Like, Bilbo had it all that time. It didn't do nothing to him for real, but he felt it activate when the evil man came back into existence. And then that was when he left, but the evil man found the village anyway because of a snitch. And, well, he couldn't help but snitch.
He was getting tortured.
They were at his house. Well, that too. I was talking about somebody else, but yeah.
Oh,
Gollum
yeah.
was getting tortured.
Yeah.
He told him where the ring was.
He was also drunk.
And then they got to another place with another person with a Hobbit, and they were threatening him and stuff at his house. And
he was like, "There ain't nobody here.
Right?
They over there
looking for somebody else, my brother." And but yeah, so they got to the village, but they had already left. And then everybody that came in contact with it was basically like, "Give me that ring! I need that power in my life!" And it just kept escalating the longer into the movie. But I liked it. I never thought that I wasn't gonna like the movie. The only issue I had with it was how long it was. Like, that's why I didn't want to watch it from the beginning. But I like fantasy films. I don't watch them all the time because they're usually long. Like, a lot of fantasy films are long for some reason. But
maybe having a lot to jam in.
Section that thing up, baby. Part 1, Part 2. But I did like it. I liked the storyline and all that. I did not read any of the books. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, none of that. I didn't even know the books existed until the movie came out. And what else? So, I really liked the action in this movie. It was a lot of fighting going on. A lot of tomfoolery between the hobbits that were with Frodo and getting on my nerves.
Trash friends.
Well, only one of them was his actual friend.
Oh, that's true.
And what else? I liked Stryker, that's his name. I liked his little story. And I felt like he was an elf. Because I felt like I saw a point on his ear. I was like, pull your hair back, Stryker. You a prince for the for the elves, not the humans. But I know that's not true. But I felt like it anyway. That's in my fan fiction. And he was mixed. Whatchamacallit, Winter's Coming Man got on my nerves the whole movie up until he died almost. He finally was like, alright, you're cool, I guess. Brother. Like, don't call me brother now. You've been fighting with me this whole time.
It was because he was salty. Because when he found out who he was,
salty.
He found out because he was top dog. People. He was top dog till he found out who he was. He was like, "Oh man, you actually above me. Like I thought you was dead. Everybody thought you was
we
gone.
We don't have a king. Blah blah blah. Clearly you do."
It's me, y'all.
That's when he said it. When he found out who he was, he was like, "We don't have a king." All right, Scar. But anyway, Gandalf was cool. I liked all the characters. As I said, whatchamacallit got on my nerves, but he was alright too. The elves were the vampires of this movie. They were the cuties.
Yep.
But they had this Twilight thing to them where they were sparkling, so they get some points deducted for that. But
that was just to signify how beautiful they are.
Things can be beautiful without glitter. Glitter is a hassle. But I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about this other than I liked it. It was cool. I would watch the other movies very far spread out.
No marathons for us.
Give myself a rest in between. At least like one weekend and the next weekend. Definitely not during the same week. But they were good. I mean, it was good. And as I said, I have seen The Hobbit before. I made it through those. Though I did fall asleep. I think we had to watch the last one. Either the last one or the next to last one. The next to last one. We had to watch that one in parts. Like one part one day, one part the next day because I was sleepy. But
those weren't as good. In my opinion.
I don't remember actually.
But
anyway, I'm delving over here. I do recommend this movie to people. And I don't know if I think this should be on a list or not. But I would give it 4 Cowboy Ninjas out of 5. And I'm undecided on whether it should be on the list. You, darling?
So, though, from what I remembered before we watched it this past weekend, I was like, I remember liking Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings, but you know how times can change where you were really into something when you watched it, and then time goes by, like a lot of time goes by, in this case a decade, and you watch it again, you're like, you know what, this was not as good as I remember.
Back at me.
Yes. But it's so hilariously bad though. It's so hilariously bad. If you haven't seen Mac and Me, please watch it. If you know anything about Paul Rudd, you are somewhat familiar with Mac and Me. You'll know it when you see it. Anyway, I was skeptical about this, especially since she had been like adamant about not watching it. I was like, this is gonna be, 50-50 on whether it holds up or not, right? But I was surprised that it did hold up, and I was still entertained. Again, this came out in 2001, and most of the visuals still hold up, unlike Lost in Space, which looks like
gave me a literal headache when we watched it.
The story of Lost in Space and the acting still good, still entertaining. But the CG, oh my goodness, the CG looked like when they first found out about CG, like literally, hey, guess what I just heard? There's this new thing that you can do on a computer, and you can make stuff that isn't real.
They had the
and put it on screen.
Even actually, I was about to say they had the same special effects, visual effects, whichever one it is. You know, I always get it mixed up. They had the same level as The Abyss, but The Abyss was actually better than this movie, within that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And that's crazy.
It's because The Abyss was like, it was dark, and it was like,
it was dark.
It was minimal, but I think it was too
minimal.
It was too much in Lost in
That's
Space.
what I'm saying.
Yeah. Like,
I was like, they should have taken the lead from them. Well, taken some direction from them and went that route, because what were you thinking about?
Yeah, it looked bad, like super bad. But this, in 2001, this is why I think it deserves to be on the list, because for two reasons. Number one, the visual aspect. Peter Jackson and Weta, the company that worked on the visual effects, were able to do things that hadn't been done on such a grand scale before. Like, not that visual effects hadn't been done before, but it was minimal. You know, it'd be dark, kind of deal, where this was giant armies. Like, the very beginning of the movie is just all VFX. Like, it's a giant army fighting of orcs and other creatures, and humans, and you know, and all that. And it looks like a giant battle. And it don't look like just a garbled up piece of CG mess or whatever. Like, it looks like you took a drone shot or something, or you up in a helicopter, and it's all these people fighting. Does it look perfect? No, it don't look perfect. But it still look good, even, you know, by 2025 standards, right? You had they did a lot of in-camera stuff. So like the Hobbits, where they did the stuff that they wound up using with like Elf, the movie Elf, directed by Jon Favreau, where you put
somebody there, so that it looks like this person is way bigger. That's a trend on TikTok right now, actually.
But what made it super cool was it wasn't still shots. Like, the camera would be moving, so they had to design specific sets so that when the camera moved, it didn't break the effect. But, you know, Gandalf would be here where we're sitting, and then Ian would be right here, and then you got Elijah Wood behind him like 6 feet, and it makes him look smaller than what he is. Everything wasn't practical like that, but they did a lot of practical shots like that, with a moving camera, which made it like, man, how did they do? Because it's easy to do when you got the camera sitting still, but when you're moving around, then it breaks the illusion. Like I said, still hold up, and it showed that you could make a movie like that and it be good or whatever, right? Like, so many other fantasy movies came out after that, and they went off of, you know, Weta's kind of template, or they used Weta, right? And then Weta blew up and became like this big powerhouse of a VFX studio. It turned an actual place of New Zealand into this fantasy world or whatever. They didn't have to go build a set. They didn't have to, you know, shoot out in California and add all this other stuff to make it look fantastical. It's like, New Zealand is just like beautiful. It's beautiful by itself. And this movie made me want to go to New Zealand. Like, I had in passing heard about New Zealand, but I didn't really know about New Zealand for real. And when I saw this movie and found out it was filmed there, I was like, man, I gotta go to New Zealand.
I want to go to there.
Because it's just like, they filmed a lot of natural stuff. They did build some stuff here and there, but for the most part, it was just like, that's what New Zealand looks like, right?
And you can still visit it to this day.
Some of it. Yeah, some of it. This launched the career of, I forgot the man name. Gollum.
Oh, Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis, yeah. Andy Serkis. So Andy Serkis was an unknown. He did the motion capture for Gollum. Oh, this also kind of blew up No, really blew up motion capture.
You proud of him?
I'm proud of you. Motion capture wasn't really a thing, and this movie made it legit. Like, oh, you can actually use this technology. Basically, like a lot of movie technology that didn't get started with Fellowship of the Rings, but got actually showcased. Where it's like, this is the full potential of what this can be, and it's not just a fad. It's a real viable thing. Lord of the Rings did that. But yeah.
I guess we should be on the list then.
Andy Serkis' career blew up. He did more motion capture work, and then they found out he was such like a good actor that he started doing the voices for the characters, and they gave him his own roles, like as actual.
He got to be himself, human man.
A human, not just motion capture, but he did a buttload of motion capture stuff, voice acting work.
Look him up if you're not familiar. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, I think this just opened a lot of doors, movie wise, for future grand endeavors. Like, I don't think something like Transformers would have been made without the visual success of this movie, or a lot of different movies. Like, not just Transformers, but yeah, it's like we have the technology now, and we know it can actually work, and we can do all these big. Now, granted, we done got out of hand these days, and everything is CG. We don't really do practical stuff anymore, which I still appreciate. I love both. I'm not a hater of CG. I'm just like, you could have did that practically.
Right. Some stuff is just unnecessary.
Yeah, it's unnecessary. But yeah, the story was good. I didn't know how the story was gonna hold up, but it did. I was still annoyed by the Hobbits, all of them. Not just the three friends, but all four of them jokers. Dum-dums. It was a good time. So if you don't mind fantasy stuff, I'd recommend watching this. Like I said, I think it deserves to be on the list. I would give this 4 Cowboy Ninjas out of 5. But yeah, that was our thoughts on the Fellowship of the Ring. Got anything else? I know I had a lot more tidbits, but I done forgot them all, and they're necessary.
No. But yeah. enough of the tidbits. This, if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't, leave a comment. Thumbs up. Give it a thumbs down.
We don't care.
We just want the interaction.
All right. We want y'all to be truthful. Don't fake the funk. We don't fake the funk. You don't fake the funk. If you did like it, share it, subscribe, tell your people about it. Look out for more. Go look at some of the older stuff that we've done, and see if you can see us finish this 1001 movie journey. It's rough.
We're gonna look a lot different by the time we finish this.
A lot different.
We're gonna have to do a time lapse and show us aging while we're doing these reviews.
But until then, this has been another episode of Team Tatum.